Hello everybody, it's vanburman here. Welcome back to another video, and the 40 series has been launched by NVIDIA, and I'm either making a video because it's incredibly good and brilliant value for money, or it's a bit of a slap in the face. Unfortunately, it does happen to be the latter on this occasion. Quite surprised, really, looking through the specs, the prices. Start off with one thing which is quite revealing, I think, and that is, I know it's due to the flaky performance of the pound at the minute, but interesting to read that the prices in the UK are higher than they are over in the US. So that's a bit interesting as a side note, I guess. I don't suppose it doesn't change the overall complexion of this story, but still, it's just worth noting, I suppose. So we seem to have a situation where I should probably start by going through some of the specs, but effectively we've got two versions of the 4080. I'm not really going to talk about the 4090. I don't necessarily really see that as a high-end mainstream card. You can think differently if you want, but I more class the 80 Ti series as being that high-end card, mainstream high-end card. And we got one that's 16 gig, one that's 12 gig. So two separate SKUs basically for the 4080. And if you didn't give me the 40 and the 80 there, I would have thought one was one tier and one was the next tier. The 12 gigabyte 4080 looks like a 4070 in reality. I don't really like this kind of product market segmentation. Product segmentation is what I was thinking. Didn't say it though. And just because I don't mind if you're going to add more VRAM to a card, I think that's for the most part fine. I think what they did with the 3080, bit weird, but not too egregious, especially after the fact. But to release there's a 4 gigabyte VRAM buffer. I don't really necessarily see there being too much of a difference between the two. I would like to have thought that NVIDIA would release it with 16 gigabytes to compete with AMD on memory capacity as well, which obviously they have done for one of their SKUs. But you also have the issue of having dramatically less CUDA cores, so cut down, but then trying to increase that power by having the 12 gigabyte model boost higher. Now I'm guessing that's because the core density is lower, therefore they can boost it a bit higher. I think that's pretty basic logic, I guess. That makes sense. I'm sure it must be something similar to that. But then we also have a cut down memory interface as well. So you have 256 bit for the 16 gigabyte and then 192 bit for the 4080. I'm not sure what bit the 3080 runs at. I'm going to have a quick check because that might be quite interesting. So the 10 gigabyte 3080 is connected using a 320-bit memory interface, which even the 16 gigabyte version doesn't have, which is quite interesting. I know that the 3080 wasn't saturating that, or at least that's the opinion that I've garnered from listening to other tech authorities, if you like, or graphics card authorities. So it's interesting to see if that does place a limitation on the 3080 for both versions, of course. And it'd be interesting to see how it stacks up compared to the 3080. Will it just brute force it by being better, even in those memory bandwidth related scenarios? But I mean, like I say, we're talking lots of gigabytes per second, so maybe it's a moot point. Just interesting to spot the difference, if you like. And then there's also a 15 plus 20, a 35 watt power difference between the two cards as well. So the higher memory version has an extra 35 watts to play with, which is not nothing. And even if that's just for increased cooling, or I don't know if they're going to have different shrouds or not, it doesn't look like it, but who knows? Based on the Founders Edition leaks, they just look like thicker versions of the of the 3080 series cards. So, yeah. So that all in all, I mean, it doesn't necessarily sound too bad. It does sound like they've forgotten to put the 70 in there rather than the 80, I would suggest. But it feels, and time will tell, but it feels like we're entering another 1060 scenario between the 3 gig and the 6 gigabyte version, where it wasn't just a memory issue. It was the fact that the 3 gigabyte version was completely cut down compared to the 6 gigabyte version. And I think, well, it's obvious because there's such a big disparity in the price. I mean, you're looking at a I'm just guessing, 25 to 30-ish% or 20 to 30% premium for the 16 gigabyte version compared to the 12 gigabyte version. And I don't think a bank of 4 gigabytes of VRAM is going to cost upwards of £300, $300. So that's clearly not where the money's going, I must say. Yeah, I don't necessarily believe the graphs that are being shown either. I don't like NVIDIA doing that thing where they say this card is 1x performance and now this card is 2-3 times faster, 4 times faster apparently in some scenarios. I don't necessarily believe it. I think we'll get the 20, 30, maybe even 40% if we're lucky increase. But quite realistically, for the majority of games, we'll have a few cherry picked that will do exceptionally well, I imagine. And then, then plus there's all these different ways of judging it with DLSS, without DLSS. How will DLSS 3 help in terms of frame rates? Probably quite a lot. But I prefer to judge these things on their raw performance. DLSS, FSR is something that you apply after the fact when you're struggling to hit frame rates at certain resolutions. And, it's more worthwhile at higher resolutions as well, whereas I don't know if the majority of people are actually using 4K displays. I'd probably say it's a toss-up between 1080 and 1440. I haven't seen any of the Steam surveys recently, but that's where I would put most people. Certainly 1080p is going to be a big market segment, and I think a lot of people, if they're shopping savvily, trying to split between their monitor resolution and what their PC can do, would aim more towards 1440p. I think it's still going to be the sweet spot where the price makes sense. I mean, like my 1440p monitor has a great value really, and 165 hertz as well. So you've got the headroom to move into when the graphics cards get faster and more capable. So I'm really disappointed by NVIDIA. We've seen a £650, I think it was £650 or $650, whatever it was, 3080, and then that's now transformed into a $900, £950 12 gigabyte version. And I have no doubt that it's going to be quicker, but it's not the same value for sure. And then we have the real 4080, if you like, taking up the old 3090 position, but with less VRAM. But once again, still be quicker than the 3090. So, I don't know. It is a really bad prospect for the 40 series, especially if you're wanting to get into building. It doesn't set a good tone for whatever the 4070, 4060 happens to be. I mean, based on this, do we see a £700 4070 for 70 SKU? It's difficult to justify. And I think NVIDIA, maybe it's a ploy to sell through more of their 30 series cards, but the value is not going to be in 40 series. I can pretty much guarantee that. And it probably may come down to where the relative performance is from the 4080 16 gigabyte to your 3090 Ti. I don't know if there'll necessarily be that much difference. I guess we'll see. Got to wait for real reviews rather than 3 scenarios that NVIDIA have cherry picked for us to tell us how much times quicker it is rather than actual frame rates and frame times and that sort of thing, which is far more useful for judging performance. So I feel really disappointed. It's not. I had my doubts over whether I would partake in this particular series just because of the whole cost of living issue and something I'm not immune to. I don't think anyone that I know is immune to it. And it was probably something I was thinking, if I'm going to spend that much money, do I skip it? Do I skip the 40 series and go for the 50 series when that comes out? I think this has pretty much confirmed that for me. It's not an amount of money I would be willing to drop on there, not really for any amount of performance, because I don't know, I have, especially over the last 3 to 6 months, I've rarely played any games on my PC that pushes the 3080 to its limits. I play a lot of stuff on the Steam Deck as well, so my individual use case is different. Everyone else's will be. If it's for professional work, then by all means you go out and spend the money because you need that performance. But if you're, gaming, gosh, like how good a value does a used 3060 Ti 3070 look now compared to that? And obviously, if we assume how the price comes down in the tiers as well, like I say, potentially a £700 3070, then it's or even worse, something like a £450 4050, which is absolutely bananas. I don't have too much else to say on it, actually. I think NVIDIA will be doing themselves particularly some reputational damage, also probably sales damage, but yeah, unless it's just, like I say, a really big ploy to try and get through the remainder of the 30 series cards, and they have always been planning to make a huge price cut to these, in January, February next year. I don't really see that, though, if I'm honest. Yeah, it's a difficult value proposition, even with the new tech and whatnot, unless, like I say, unless something comes out of it that totally blows it out of the water. I don't know. When the real reviews come out, then we'll have to see. But looking at the graph is difficult, really difficult to get excited about. But yeah, let me know what you think. I imagine, particularly the people who I know who will watch my sort of videos and my content and that sort of thing, probably look at it with the same amount of bemusement and disdain as I do, and think that is completely and utterly ludicrous. We're talking full capable system costs for a graphics card. Potentially with monitors, keyboards, mice, the lot. Particularly when you look at the 16GB version, 3060 Ti will do you just fine, really, realistically, for 1080p. And you might say, well, this is for 4K. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm not the target market for this card, but anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed following along, and I will see you all very soon. Bye for now.